Friends with Dignity is a volunteer-based non-profit organisation that provides support services for people experiencing domestic and family violence. Friends with Dignity relies solely on their volunteers to deliver all of their services. Friends with Dignity faces the problem of inactive volunteers who sign up but don't show up. This prevents Friends with Dignity from effectively delivering their services to the community.
This project aims to examine the obstacles that prevent Friends with Dignity's volunteers from actively participating. Our research will explore the motivations behind their volunteer base, what limits their capacity to participate, and how Friends with Dignity can improve active engagements amongst their volunteers.
Our research questions are: how do volunteers conceptualise inactivity? And what are the enablers and barriers to being an active volunteer?
To answer our research questions, a mixed methods approach was employed, which involved preliminary quantitative analysis of administrative data, followed by qualitative semi-structured interviews with 5 volunteers and 3 members of the leadership team. The administrative data shows that out of all registered volunteers, 67.2% are active, while the other 37.3% are inactive. Whilst Queensland has the majority of volunteers, there is no significant difference between active and inactive volunteers within each state. Most active volunteers fall within the 40 to 49 age group, while most inactive volunteers belong to the 50 to 59 and 60 to 69 age groups. A vast majority of volunteers, both active and inactive, were motivated by the desire to give back to society. The biggest portion of Friends with Dignity volunteers are working full-time, followed by part-time, studying, and retired. When analysing the correlation between work status and volunteer status, it is apparent that most inactive volunteers are working full-time, studying, or working part-time, which suggests that work status could be a contributing factor that impacts volunteer participation.
To answer our research questions, our qualitative analysis has revealed 2 main themes. Our first theme is conceptualising inactivity. This theme encompasses how inactivity is understood at Friends with Dignity and how inactivity affects the active volunteers. Some define the divide between active and inactive through the amount of hours volunteered. Others define this through the level of connection and engagement felt by the volunteers. Inactivity is exacerbated by the lack of clarity during the onboarding process. Inactivity places a burden on the active volunteers who feel overwhelmed and burnt out during busy periods.
Active volunteers are people who feel engaged, who have a connection to their local volunteers group, who actively participate, who are competent in teams, who feel welcome. It can take 6 weeks before you're on board, and there's no warm connection. There has to be someone that takes you out for coffee, tell you about everything, and it's your buddy. It's gotta be a buddy program.
Our second theme is cultivating activity and can be divided into 2 categories: enablers and barriers. Cultivating activity is enabled through Friend with Dignity's sense of community.
Our findings suggest there is a sense of community between active volunteers, especially those volunteering in the same program and those of a similar age. Interviewees expressed a strong sense of fulfillment and purpose when engaging in volunteer activities and bonding with fellow like-minded volunteers, support workers, and donors. Informal social events were also useful for community building and sharing fulfilling stories of volunteer experiences. That said, the responsibility tied into this sense of community can create pressure, burden, and burnout for some volunteers.
It's a core group that have both sign up and show up on a regular basis, and that's really important. If they left, it would fall apart. Big time fall apart.
The main barrier to cultivating activity is communication.
Communication is at the centre of some recurring barriers impacting volunteer engagement. There is a lack of organisational cohesion between volunteers and the leadership team, and between states. There is also a lack of communication between members of the leadership team. These communication issues are exacerbated by the current communication platform, Microsoft Teams, which is not user-friendly and is difficult to navigate.
When communication fails, it erodes the organisation's sense of community, which consequently affects the cultivation of activity.
She doesn't always listen or understand what's happening here because she's in Gold Coast, and she can say that and she does not appreciate what's going on here.
Based on these findings, we propose the following recommendations. Firstly, introducing a buddy system to aid the new volunteers.
Second, improving recruitment and onboarding procedures to help find and continue to engage new volunteers will help bolster the Friends with Dignity community. And third, shifting to a more user-friendly platform and listening to community needs for both volunteering and social events.
We hope these findings will help Friends with Dignity engage their volunteers in new ways, whilst also filling crucial research gaps regarding inactive volunteering and the impacts this has on volunteer-based organisations more broadly.